Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Andrew, and this is Discovering the Truth. As I said in my previous video, I was going to tell the world my personal encounter. Now, I have went on another gentleman's YouTube channel, and I told my story through there. But now I want to share it on my own channel, because coming forth with my encounter has given me courage to tell my story again, but also to be able to create my own channel. Because I know there are thousands of people out there that have had encounters and are too afraid to come forth. And I'm kind of giving it like an outlet for people. And I know there's a lot of YouTubers and there's a lot of other big content creators out there that do the exact same thing that I am trying to do. But not every person has had their own personal encounter. So, as I promised, I'm going to tell my story as best as I can remember it. But please bear with me, because this is a very sensitive topic. It honestly makes me very uncomfortable. But I'm doing this to show all of you, but also people that have not seen my channel before, to give them courage to come forth and tell their stories. Because the more people bring this to light, the closer we are to discovering the truth. So, where do these things come from? What are they? I don't know. I have my theories and my thoughts, but I truly do not know. So I have decided to make my video into a 3-part section, just because, one, I don't have all the time in the world to spend making videos. Not yet, at least. Because, well, I don't get to do this as a full-time job. So I don't have a lot of time to be able to do this. I also am a father of 7 to be exact. So a lot of the times I'm pretty busy. So I'm going to set it up into a 3-part video series so that gives me time to get the videos out to all of you, but also it gives me time to be able to put towards my family and other important things that must be done. So, one more thing before I start. I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for all the people that have left comments and have subscribed to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. I'm pushing 100 subscribers now, which is absolutely amazing. And I truly do want to make this into a full-time career. Not because of money, simply because I want to have the time and the resources to be able to put forward and put into this channel of being able to go out and discover the truth, to be able to do investigations, and also being able to interact with all of you. And of course, I want to be able to invite people onto my channel so that I can hear all of your guys's, scary or bizarre encounters. So with all that being said, thank you. I am eternally grateful. And now, we will begin. Bear with me, please. This is a very sensitive topic, and it's not fabricated, it's not made up. I wish that it was. My encounter truly did make me rethink my reality, and I question my own reality. I have ran every scenario through my head, and it all comes up to I seen something, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Now let us begin. Alright, so where to begin? So I'm going to say that I'm really bad with dates and time, but I would probably say it's probably been close to 3 years since my encounter. I could be wrong. I like I said, I'm bad with dates and just in general. But about 3 years ago, I used to work for a company that I was a beer delivery driver. And if you're curious, it is Anheuser-Busch. I worked there for a very long time, and I actually ran a route that was where I live. I commuted about 40 minutes or so to work, and I ran my route in the small town that I live in. Now, mind you, I've been running this route for a very long time. I went to the exact same stops pretty much every week, besides stops that were, once a month and things like that. Now, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I delivered to convenience stores. I only had one grocery store on my route. On Wednesday, my route was different, and I was also in a different truck. Now, the other days of the week, I drove in a truck called an inloader. And on Wednesday, I was in a truck called a side loader, which is a bit smaller, except instead of getting your products from the back of your truck, you're getting it from right and left sides through these big giant roll-up doors. Now, I've been delivering to this particular bar for a very long time. Now, mind you, this was a very creepy place, but I never really paid it any mind. It was just dark, creepy. It just happens, You get out to a location and it's still dark out. You kind of creep your own self out. Well, this particular morning, I did what I always did. I got to the location, I pulled in, and I went around the back of the building. Now, mind you, I'm in a big truck, so it was really the only location I had to park, and it was the best means of being able to get my job done efficiently. Now, this bar is not super isolated. It's not around a super wooded area. There are woods and there is a creek, but it's not like being in the middle of the forest. And there was an interstate nearby this location. So, it doesn't really have the atmosphere or the setting that most people have these very scary encounters. Now, I know other people do have encounters just out of nowhere. And that's exactly how mine happened. Now, when I got to the location, I parked my truck, I cut my lights off, but I cut on my four-way flashers, and I cut on my service light on the back of my tractor to give me a little bit of light because, like I said, it is dark. Now, I get out of my truck, and as I always do, I unlatch the door. Well, doors, excuse me. And as I get out of the truck, I did notice something very strange. There was no sound. It was if somebody hit the mute button, which definitely comes off as very unsettling. I stood there for a moment thinking, this is kind of creepy. Like, where are the bugs? Where are the frogs? Where's the cicadas? Where's any noise at all? There was no wind, no sound. It was literally as if somebody hit the pause button, but I was the only thing that was not paused. It was very bizarre and very creepy. But I shrugged it off because I'm normally a pretty happy-go-lucky person, and I'm just trying to get my job done so I can get home to my family. So I unlock my doors and I go to collect a means of entering this establishment, as I always done before. I unlock the door to this place and I go inside to ensure that they have a check, and I always check for empty kegs. And that's exactly what I did. Now, on my way back out, I had a sense that I was being watched. And it wasn't like a slight, it was a very strong presence that I felt like I was being watched. And it honestly made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. But as I said before, I just kind of ignored it and was like, I'm just going to get this done and out of here, as I always done before. So I go to the back of my truck to get my hand trucks off. I have two, one for kegs and one for any other beer products. Now, as I'm getting my hand trucks, the sense of something was watching me was very strong, but I also had the feeling like something was behind me. And as any person would, you snap your head looking around, but yet there was nothing there. It was a very, very eerie feeling to have. Now, mind you, shortly after getting my hand trucks out the back of the truck, everything seemed to go back to normal. I didn't feel like I was being watched, and the noises around me seemed to come back to life. So I go and I start collecting their beer, rolling it in and out. Now, periodically as I'm doing this, I do notice that the feeling keeps coming and going, as if something is there and then it goes away. Now, after I get all their packaged beer and I get their kegs inside the truck or inside the establishment, I have to go back in and I have to basically write the check, credit them for their empty kegs, and of course lock up the establishment and move on. As I collect their empty kegs and my check and print out the proper paperwork, I go out the door and I hear something from the wood line. It was a large tree or stick that snapped. Now, mind you, it fell silent again. So hearing that snap of a tree or a large stick when it's completely silent is definitely very unsettling. I jumped out of my skin because it was just out of nowhere. But then I jumped out of my skin for a second time because my phone started going off in my back pocket. So I hurry up and set down the hand truck to reach for my phone. I look at my phone and realize that it is my supervisor calling me. So I answer the phone, and this is his words. He's like, "How are you? You doing all right? Everything okay?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "Oh, just making sure you didn't hit anything." I was very confused. I was like, "Huh?" My truck is sitting at a dead stop. And I explained to him, I said, "No, I didn't hit anything." And he's like, "Are you sure you didn't hit like a pothole or, a deer jump out in front of you?" And I was like, "No, I'm sitting here at this bar." And he's like, "Oh, well, that's strange because the third-party company notified him that the camera was set off." Now, mind you, these cameras inside the truck are not sensitive. You really have to truly hit something or hit your brakes too hard or hit a very bad pothole. Now, mind you, the whole time that I worked there, I've only set off the camera once. And it was going back to the warehouse one day, going through road work. I hit a pothole really hard and it set off my camera. So I was really confused. And to be honest, I think anybody would be. Excuse me, everybody. I do feel like I'm getting under the weather, so I'm losing my voice slightly. That's why I'm trying to get this video done. So I apologize. So as I'm on the phone, sorry, I needed a drink. So as I'm on the phone with him, he's explaining to me what happened. Now, if you don't know, there's a camera that is positioned inside the cab of the truck. It is facing inwards towards the driver, and another camera is facing outside through the windshield. And like I said, it does take a lot to set off these cameras. So he keeps explaining to me that, something set off my camera, and I was like, "No, I'm just sitting at Kickers." And he's like, "Well, maybe it was a glitch, whatever else." And he's like, all right, well, I just want to make sure you're okay. If you need me, you holler at me. And I was like, all right, I appreciate it. And he's like, all right, you have a good day. So I get off the phone with him. And I'm standing there after hanging up the phone with him. And I'm just like, that was really, really strange. Because why exactly would he call me right after this large branch broke, but also all the other strange, happenings that all happened pretty much simultaneously, like in a row? So I was really creeped out at this point because I'm thinking to myself, like, what is going on? Now, as I'm getting my stuff and I'm locking up the door, well, no, excuse me, I already locked up the door. I grabbed my hand trucks that had the empty kegs, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to get out of here. Now, as I go up and I'm bringing the empty kegs to the empty bay that I'm going to put them in, I feel like I'm being watched again, except now it feels more intense. So I'm trying to ignore it, and I'm throwing my kegs in there, and I'm like, I'm just going to get out of here. Because, to be honest, I'm really creeped out at this point. I load up the empty kegs and I close the door and I go to lock it, and I still have to go around to the back of my truck to load up both of my hand trucks. And to be honest, I was really, really creeped out. I was like, because it's dark and I don't want to go back to the back of my truck because it's even darker back there. And of course, my back will be turned towards the wooded area. So I go back there, I'm very paranoid, and I feel the sense of eyes are on me. And it's like, I don't even think it was just the simple fact that eyes were on me. I could feel something was there or something was wrong. So I load up my hand trucks. I'm doing it as quickly as I can, and you have to make sure that they are secured because they can come off, and, well, that could lead to a very bad accident or, well, you lose your hand truck. So I make sure they're secure, and I'm not going to lie, after I made sure that they were secured, I booked it back to my truck because I was very creeped out. Now, when I climbed up into my truck, I have a printer and a handheld. And of course, I have the check, and I have to make sure I do my paperwork, close out my stop, and all the other essentials you must do when completing a stop. So as I'm doing this, of course, I feel safer inside my truck, but I still feel very creeped out. Now, as I'm putting my check in and I'm getting ready to put my handheld and printer in the other seat, I felt something shake my truck. It wasn't like as if something moved it. It was as if something, I don't know, put weight on it or moved it. I guess the best way you could describe it, have you ever been in a car and your buddy or your dad or something goes up to it and shakes your car? It's not moving the car, but then it feels like it is. That's the best way I could describe it. And as this happens, I'm sitting there and I put my arms up like so, and I'm like, did my truck just move? And I'm looking around like, what in the world was that? It felt like something shook my entire truck. Now, mind you, any vehicle is heavy. And any tractor and trailer is heavy. But this truck and trailer is extremely heavy. Now, mind you, a normal truck, like an end loader, is made of wood and metal. But this particular trailer is made out of steel and aluminum. On top of that, I'm fully loaded besides unloading one stop. So I have kegs and packaged beer. So this trailer is extremely heavy. For anything to be able to bump into it, shake it, anything, would have tremendous force. Now, as I'm sitting there looking around, I felt it again. but it was more subtle. It wasn't as intense as the first time. So as any normal human being, you start looking out your window, you're looking around your truck, and I spotted something. I looked down the mirror on my driver side, and I saw something not at the solid bottom part of the truck, but I would say right around where my flashing lights were. I saw something, I don't know, like something on the edge of my truck. And I'm sitting there and I'm staring at something. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but it was a hand. And then it happened. Now, I want to clarify with everyone. What I'm about to tell you, it's not made up. It's not misidentifying something. This is 100% what I saw with my own two eyes. Something that literally should not exist. Something that crawls out of your worst nightmares. Now, as I'm looking at whatever this is, I'm not sure what exactly it is at all. I'm really confused. But then it seems to pull itself from around the back part of my truck. Now, mind you, I've already cut off my service light, but I still have my four-way flashers on, and my truck is not started yet. Because, I get all my paperwork and all my stuff ready and situated before I leave to go to my next stop. When I tell you that something pulled itself around my truck, and how I know it was a hand is because the hand was pulling itself around. And that's when I noticed something at the end of my truck. Something with very pale skin. Something that looked like a skeleton. A skeleton with skin stretched over it. I'm sitting there looking in my mirror at something, and I don't know what it is. And I'm looking at this thing, and I'm in my head. I don't even remember what was going through my head, but I'm just quoting what I think was going on. I'm pretty much saying, what the hell is that? What? I mean, I'm like stuttering in my head. I am freaking out. And that's when this thing snapped its head and was looking directly at me through the mirror. Now, the best way I can describe what this looked like, kind of like what this picture is up on my screen right now, but no, this doesn't even justify what I saw. When I say that this thing was pale white, you could tell it clear as day. It was like a pale white or like a grayish, like dead skin type color. And you could see all the bones underneath. And when this thing looked at me in my mirror, its face was like a very anorexic person. To where you could see the bone structure, and you could see pale grayish skin. You could see like veins underneath. And its eyes were black holes, except in the dead center, there was like a light or a reflection. I'm thinking it's some type of reflective eyes. I don't know. I don't know if they were reflective or this thing literally had glowing like white eyes. And I am frozen in place. I mean, I'm honestly frozen looking at this thing. And it is staring at me through my mirror. And the amount of emotions that I felt looking at whatever this was, I felt dread, anxiety, stress, hatred. Like, it was a feeling that I cannot even explain it. It was like dread and just everything bad that you could possibly think of was literally, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it was making me feel things that I shouldn't have been feeling at that moment. And this thing is just staring at me, and I can't move. I can't speak. I don't even think I blinked. And I'm staring at this thing, and as I'm doing it, it's slowly pulling itself further around my truck. And I can feel my truck moving to where this thing is like, I don't know if it's latched on to the back of my truck or its arms were putting so much weight and strength behind it that it was literally, as if you hit like something and your car bounces because of the shocks. That's what I was feeling. And the whole time I'm just staring at this thing. I don't know what to do. And I do remember in my head saying that, am I hallucinating? What the blank is that? And as this thing is pulling itself out, I noticed that how bony its hands were and how thin its arms, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, its arms were like so skinny and its fingers were so long and skinny and bony. It was like literally looking at a walking, moving skeleton, like a corpse. I don't know how to explain it. And this thing is just looking at me. It will not stop staring at me. The feelings of immense, like, pain, death, just every bad thought you could possibly think of was running through my head. And as this thing's pulling itself out, I noticed something towards the top part of my truck. And that's when I realized that that was another of its arms. Of course, it only has 2 arms, but it's so big that I don't know that if it was on all 4s or if it did like, I don't know, like a Spider-Man leap on the side of my truck in the back, right where I was just a few moments prior to this happening. So I don't know if this thing was plotting an attack or I don't know. Now, something that I didn't tell in the YouTuber's, the gentleman's channel I went on, I do remember hearing something as I was booking it to my truck. I did remember hearing like a strange metal flapping sound. It only happened for a brief second, and I didn't think anything about that until later on when I had another encounter with this exact creature. As it's pulling itself around my truck, I realize how big this thing is. And by my estimates, this thing had to be at least 6.5 to 7 foot tall. And I'm not a very small person, but this thing would tower over me. This thing would definitely be it would be taller than my truck. Now, mind you, a side loader truck is not as tall as a normal 18-wheeler. It does sit down pretty low down to the ground, but it's still a pretty big truck, height-wise and length. As it's pulling itself around, it's still staring at me, and I guess that I got the sense of like the fight or flight kicked in. And that is when I immediately went for my ignition to my truck. And this is where I say that this thing it's not human. This thing is beyond human, and its speed is unnatural. As I reached for the ignition of my truck, and like I said, I don't remember, I could be leaving parts out. This is already hard enough. I try to take this memory and push it all the way to the back of my head. But as I start this truck, I hear this noise. I don't know if it made a noise. It was a god-awful racket. And I'm still looking at this thing in the mirror, and I'm like starting my truck and trying to slam it into drive. I didn't care if I tore the building up. I didn't care at this point. But as I do that and I'm getting ready to drive, I hear this sound, and when I look in the mirror, when I say that if you blinked, you would miss it, this thing tore off on all fours so fast that if it wanted to come and rip the door of my truck off and pull me out and pull me into the woods, there would have been nothing I could have done to stop it. This thing's speed was not natural. It was literally lightning fast. This thing was gone within a blink of an eye, and it took off into the woods and was gone in literally a matter of maybe 2 seconds. Just gone. Extremely fast, extremely nimble. And I remember smashing my truck. I remember slamming it into drive, and as I took off, I slid the back of my trailer. I almost hit the whole backside of the bar, and I got out of there. And when I got to my other stop, I parked my truck and I sat there. I sat there in disbelief. I sat there and I felt so drained. I felt like I had no energy. I felt like I went to the gym and deadlifted for hours. I had no energy. My body ached. It hurt. I don't know. I felt like I was out of body experience. And I called my wife. I was shook up. I was upset. I was crying. I was scared to death. And trying to tell her that I saw a monster. Now, even telling her, I felt like a crazy person. I was questioning my own reality. I didn't know what this thing was. I had no clue. But I can tell you this. It was not a ghost. It was not a misidentification. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't a demon. This was a living, breathing creature. Because one more thing I will mention. When it reached and pulled itself from the truck, I don't know if I was hearing breathing, but I was hearing a strange sound. But I know I was watching this thing's chest go up and down, up and down, but very, very fast. I don't know if it was breathing or what, but that's what it looked like. It kind of looked like, somebody that is very sick and they're breathing very, very fast. I don't know a better way to explain it. But I will tell you that is only the beginning of what I experienced. I have seen this thing a total of 8 times, and I also have an eyewitness. My wife and I have seen this together at the exact same time, simultaneously, in our backyard. I don't know if it's the same one or if it's a different one. But with all that being said, I'm going to call this section quits. I'm going to end the video here in just a moment, and I'm going to, the next part, I will tell you about my other encounters leading all the way up to the last encounter that I have had. Now, you can believe me or not, but I'm not here to get attention. I'm not here to make things up. I know what I saw. I know that it was a living, breathing creature. I don't know if it was man-made. I don't know if this is something that has passed through the veil and is some unknown, humanoid cryptid monster. I don't know. And I know that people, at the time that I told my story the last time, I just recently heard the 911 phone call that the gentleman made about a strange creature that attacked his truck. And that scared me even more, because that happened here in North Carolina as well, and that is where I'm at. And I'm not that far away from the Appalachian Mountains, so I don't know if it's coincidence or it's all tied together. I'm not sure. But this is my story. I hope that all of you enjoyed. This was very hard for me to talk about and trying to be as detailed as possible, but I can't even be that detailed with it because I simply don't like talking about it. It is a terrifying experience. It was a very terrifying creature. And like I said, you can believe me or not. It's your choice, not mine. I know what I saw and know what I experienced. So thank you again for all the love and support that you guys have given me, and thank you guys for getting me up to 85 subscribers. I greatly appreciate it, and thank you for being supportive. If you came from the other gentleman's channel or you're being supportive on here, I greatly appreciate it, and I'm eternally grateful. Thank you again, and I cannot wait to make the second part to this video, and I hope you guys all enjoyed. I am Andrew, and this is Discovering the Truth. And before I go, just know that if you encountered something, a dogman, Bigfoot, a ghost, a ghoul, something like I've seen, you're not alone. Don't be afraid to speak up. It may open up old wounds and it may scare you to death. I know. I feel that every day. But if you do have an experience, please message me on YouTube. I am building a Facebook that I'm going to dedicate to my channel so I can communicate. And I also have the things necessary to be able to receive calls and make calls and virtual videos, so I can invite guests onto my channel so we can discuss your encounter, or if you simply just want to talk and tell me what your thoughts are on these strange and bizarre things. Stay safe, and just remember, you're not alone. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day. I'm out.